In certain key markets for warships, like for example Japan and America, which when you think about it makes sense because their kind of experience of World War II was much more about the Pacific theatre, it was naval based. So the buzz in Japan and in America amongst certain areas of the press, particularly the military press and the sort of community, is very, very strong. So, you know, fingers crossed, there's lots of work to do, but yes, we are getting increasingly confident about the potential of World of Warships. You know, one of the reasons that Warships is developed in St. Petersburg is that, you know, they're close to the sea and they've actually got a historic battleship, you know, that's visible from the office. You know, we've got like an education centre that's on an old US Air Force carrier that's like, you know, shored up in Long Beach, California. So in the same way that, you know, we've developed relationships with tank museums which are inland, we're now beginning to do that with kind of like maritime museums. Our military team were up in Gdansk in Poland recently, where they have a sort of, you know, a naval museum. So we'll be doing a lot more of that, and I suspect for the Nordic region, with your sort of like seafaring sort of Viking inclinations, you know, I wouldn't be surprised to see a stronger community emerge in that part of the region, which means we should be able to spend more time there. So yeah, it's a similar strategy, but it's applied to the sea instead of the land. Yes, there are differences, you know. Japanese has that famously sort of isolationist, sort of, you know, very different thing. But when it comes to, you know, the kind of people that like these games that are based around big, heavy vehicles, we find we've got more in common. It's like, you know, you go to Japan, I was in Tokyo 2 years ago, and they have a military museum. You go there and they've got the Zeros, they've even got the, I can't remember the name of the tanks. The tanks weren't brilliant, but their fighter and their aircraft carrier planes are superb. The Zero is one of the great, you know, and, you know, when it comes to warships, we have, you know, prioritised the Japanese tech tree in World of Warships over other nations. For example, you know, when Russia and Germany were the obvious kind of like first two nations to have in World of Tanks. With World of Warships, it's going to be, you know, America and Japan, because you've got the Yamamoto, which was the single greatest battleship of all time, and, you know, the fact that you can eventually get to, you know, to play that thing is monumentally important. So that's what I mean about there's more similarities with the Japanese market than there are differences. So we just make the ships available. We make sure that, you know, we simulate them in the same level of detail that we did with tanks. We make sure that they look brilliant. And by the way, you know, one battleship is about 30 tanks. So the man hours it takes to make a battleship versus a tank is significantly longer. But when they finally, you know, sort of appear in your harbour, your dock, and you get to look at them for the first time, you know, I've actually crashed into islands because I've literally just been looking at the game, holding the right mouse button down and just looking at the ship, and then suddenly, you know, you hit like it's oh my god! But they just look so good.